You're watching UATV English. We broadcast from the heart of Europe, Ukraine's on here. Hello and welcome. My name is Anna Nichenko. Peace formula, confirmation of the end of the war. This is our topic for today. So, for almost 50 years, Israel has been the largest recipient of annual American aid in the form of grants and supplies of military equipment on preferential terms, writes the Washington Post. This support is spelled out in 10-year agreements and doesn't decrease with each decade, but on the contrary, it grows.
If in the 2000s it was around $30 billion per decade, then in 2016 a new agreement was signed for $38 billion. Respectively, every year it is $3.8 billion. We also know about the exchange of intelligence, about the training of soldiers that the Israeli army undergoes under the patronage of the United States of America.
A similar version of security guarantees for Ukraine is now being discussed by the United States and allies. Their essence was explained by National Security Advisor to President Biden, Jake Sullivan.
So, the concept is that the United States, alongside other allies and partners within a multilateral framework, will negotiate bilateral security commitments with Ukraine for the long term, meaning that the United States would be prepared to provide various forms of military assistance, intelligence and information sharing, cyber support and other forms of material support so that Ukraine can both defend itself and deter future aggression. Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor to the President of the United States, at a briefing in London on July 9, 2023.
The Israeli army dominates in the air, sea and land. Bringing the Ukrainian army closer to these standards will require time and considerable resources.
If the cooperation between the United States and Israel lasts almost 50 years, then in terms of Ukraine, we understand the short-term guarantees that the United States will give to other states. And therefore, it is even in their interests to place us under the common umbrella of Article 5 of the NATO-Washington Treaty, since we understand that the issue of funding that will be needed for the Ukrainian army is larger amounts than what is allocated to Israel.
Kyiv has repeatedly stated that it perceives any format of security guarantees that differs from full membership in NATO solely as a half measure necessary in the transition period before Ukraine gains membership in the alliance.
Most likely, in fact, no Israeli model will work for Ukraine. It will be necessary to develop some special Ukrainian model. And again, it should be noted, and President Zelensky has repeatedly emphasized this, that in fact Ukraine's ultimate goal is to join NATO. Even if not now and not tomorrow, ultimately we must be a member of NATO, and this will be the best guarantee of security for Ukraine.
Guarantees and long-term support for Ukraine can be based on military assistance in the construction of the armed forces, experts say. And the foundation of such support should be financial guarantees for the long or medium term. At the same time, security guarantees from allies, they may contain different components. There should be sanctions and weapons, financing, air defense, aircraft, the president of Ukraine believes. And these guarantees will be needed only on the way to NATO, Zelensky stressed. More explanations and details from my guest, Alexander Mereshko, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. Hello and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. Speaking about peace formula, what are main things of the confirmation of the end of the war? Withdrawal of Russians, restoration of Ukraine's territorial integrity and world order troops. What else?
Well, first of all, peace formula, which was created and elaborated, developed by the President Zelensky, contains of 10 points. It consists of such elements as nuclear security, food security, the issue of responsibility, the issue of guarantees to prevent in the future from aggressions against Ukraine taking place. It's important to remember that the peace formula by President Zelensky is aimed to guarantee peace not only for Ukraine, but also global peace and global security in the whole world. Most importantly is that this peace formula is firmly grounded in the UN Charter and the basic principles of international law. Its goal with regard to Ukraine is to liberate, deoccupy the whole territory of Ukraine, including, of course, Crimea. Russia should withdraw its troops from the whole territory of Ukraine. Another important issue is creating guarantees, reliable guarantees for Ukraine's security and security of the whole world to prevent Russia from threatening Ukraine again. And of course, the issue of liability or responsibility for Russia for the crimes committed by Russia, such as war crimes, crimes against humanity, and acts of genocide against Ukraine. It's impossible to bring to justice all perpetrators, starting with Russian President Putin himself.
But what about such issues as radiation and nuclear safety, energy security, about countering ecocide? How can we get it now?
Well, it's important issues, and you may notice that peace formula by President Zelensky starts with the issue of nuclear security. It is important because each country in the world, including, for example, such countries as People's Republic of China, is interested in guaranteeing nuclear security because it's about global peace. It's not only about Ukraine. Or another issue in which each country in the world is interested in is an issue of food security. We can see that countries of global south understand that food security is under threat because of Russia's aggression against Ukraine. And they are interested in guaranteeing, in ensuring food security for themselves and for the whole world.
Speaking about food security, one of Russia's demands for the restoration of the Black Sea grain agreement is the restoration of connection to SWIFT. But how can the world, how can Ukraine stop this blackmail?
Well, you're absolutely right. Using the word blackmail, we should understand that what Russia is doing is a blackmail. Russia is putting at risk food security of countries in global south. And if we allow Russia's blackmail to succeed, it might lead to hunger in the world. That's why it's important for the whole world to put pressure on Russia using different political and legal mechanisms. For example, the UN, resolutions of the General Assembly of the UN in particular. So we should also understand that Ukraine can go ahead with the security, with a grain deal, even without Russia. But to do it, we need some guarantees regarding safety of our vessels, our ships carrying grain to the countries of global south and to global markets.
And one of the very important parts of the peace formula is release of all prisoners. How should it be done, on your opinion?
It's crucially important to release all POWs, prisoners of war. I would also emphasize the need to release all Ukrainian children which were deported by force by Russia into territories of Russia. As we know, deportation by force of Ukrainian children is qualified legally as a genocide. It's a crime against all mankind. That's why it's important to guarantee the release of Ukrainian children and also guarantee the release of Ukrainian POWs. The president and his team have already working on this issue, and we can see the results. For instance, due to aid provided by Turkey, Ukraine has managed to release our prisoners of war from the battalion of Azov, for example. And the work continues. But again, to implement this, we need to put maximum pressure upon Russia and upon Putin himself.
Your thoughts after this war, is restoration of justice possible for Ukraine, for the whole world, for people who suffered because of this war, this Russian aggression?
Well, I'm sure that it's inevitable because the war can end only when justice will prevail. And we can see from the lessons of history drawn from the Second World War, for example, that guaranteeing or restoring justice is inevitable. And all the war criminals, all the perpetrators who have committed crimes against Ukraine, who have committed the crime of aggression and other horrible war crimes, they will be brought to justice. It's just a question of time. Of course, international works maybe not as quickly as national legal system, for instance, but sooner or later, all the perpetrators will be brought to justice and will bear responsibility, full responsibility for all their terrible crimes.
How do you think, is it possible and in which way to prevent such kind of escalation, aggression in future?
To do that, we need to implement reform of the United Nations, in particular, the reform of the Security Council. We see that the major international organization responsible for the maintenance of international peace and order doesn't work. It had failed to prevent aggression against Ukraine, and it has failed Ukraine in this regard. That's why we need a new security system, more reliable. For example, we need to remove veto power. And of course, we need to remove from the United Nations the perpetrator, I mean Russia, which has illegally, in violation of the UN Charter, had usurped the place of the Soviet Union on the Security Council. The aggressor should not be permanent member of the Security Council or member of the United Nations. That's why we need a reform which will lead to ensuring peace and maintenance of international peace and security all over the world.
Alexander, thanks a lot for your participation in our program and thanks a lot for your explanations. I'll remind to our viewers it was Alexander Mereshko, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. We discussed peace formula. So it was UATV in English. Thanks for watching and see you.